Heyo everybody, Haku here with a video that's going to be as the title describes. So last year in 2023 I took a few months and decided I'm going to do a bit of a project where I pick 50 anime from 2022, the year before, and I'm going to take those, I'm going to bring back my anime awards series, so this is the finale to that series actually, where I've already done Studio of the Year, Character, Relationship, Waifu of the Year, Ending and Opening, and now this is our Anime of the Year video. But the way that I'm going to do it is that I'm going to review all 50 of the anime I watched as spoiler-free as possible, from least to greatest, worst to best, even though I don't think any of them were terrible or anything, or else I wouldn't have finished them. I'm not much of a hate watcher. So strap in, this is probably going to be a very long video since I'm going to be reviewing all 50 of these. And as I review them, I will have sort of a grade number up there for them, and I'll explain those before we get into the reviews, because the way that I'm going to structure these is as we get to each show. If you see me looking at my notes, I have the names both in Japanese and in English written down, and I will structure these as me giving you the basic premise, the basic gist of it as best I can with no spoilers, and then giving you my deeper thoughts and opinions on it. Again, don't know how I'll do this in a decent amount of time getting through 50 shows, but we'll figure that out as we go along. And as for the grades, they'll range from D- to technically S+, but the top 10 I'm going to list as 10, 9, 8, etc. like I've been doing for the other anime awards, with the number one spot, the winner of this, being my overall Anime of the Year for 2022. And now that I'm done with this project, I'd kind of love to do it again for 2023, and doing so, there are a lot of really good looking anime in 2023. I don't know how I'll just stick to 50. I might even need to go up to like 100 to get in all of the good stuff that looks like happened in 2023. But with that aside, D- to me are shows that were good enough to finish. I'm not much of a hate watcher. If it wasn't good enough to finish, I was going to drop it and pick something else. In fact, I had to do that a few times. Drop something and then replace it with something else. So D-, there's only going to be 2 anime there. They're anime that were good enough to finish, but now that I finished them, I wouldn't really recommend them to anyone. D tier is going to be below average to me, kind of dull. They were okay, they were fine, they were good enough to finish, but they were a bit dull. Though I wouldn't not recommend them. I wouldn't say don't watch this. I would at least say there's something there for somebody if you've watched a lot of other shows. C tier to me is just a good, chill, fun anime that you can watch while eating or something. Very often, that's how I watch anime. That's how I got through these 50 shows. Whenever I have a lunch break, say I have a 30-minute lunch break, I'll watch an anime episode while I'm eating lunch. Or when I eat dinner, if I'm not going out or with friends or family, I will just watch an episode or two while I'm eating dinner. And that's how I got through a lot of these. So C tier are like really just good, average, fun, solid anime to watch while eating or something, but not necessarily shows for the most part that I would marathon. B tier are just good anime. They're just straight up good. I think B tier are just solid good shows. A tier is where we get into the great shows, shows that, again, not even just watching while eating something, I would just straight up marathon these if I felt like it. S tier are the standouts, the really great ones. Overall, I had 12 in S tier. They were really, really good. Or technically 9 in S tier and 3 in S+. The top 3 in this whole list that I put in S+ are ones that, to me, stand out from the entire year. If you watch anything from this list, if you're using this as a recommendation guide, and you want to watch anything, those are the 3 that I think are most important for people to watch. And I think that's about everything I wanted to say here for the intro. I'm sure I probably forgot some things, but I don't want to waste too much of your time with a long intro past this, so let's go ahead and start reviewing the least good of these. I would say that the least good show out of all 50 of these that I watched for this project is Isekai Meikyu de Harem, or Harem in the Labyrinth of Another World. It was something. So the basic premise is that this guy gets isekai'd. Wow, we've seen that a million times. So then he goes around, essentially killing bandits, clearing dungeons so that he can save up money to buy slaves and then sleep with those slaves. And I'm not going to sit here and be some arbiter of morality to fictional content. I'm not going to say that, oh, a person liking this is a bad person or anything. but I think the main character's a shitty guy. I don't like him. Screw this guy. The main character is bland and boring, but also morally kind of a crappy person. Like, if you're going through and clearing dungeons and everything, and if you're willing to, like, go kill bandits and all, to me, I feel like most isekai protagonists would just be like, let me just kill the slavers and free the slaves and, like, be a good overpowered isekai protagonist guy, even though this guy isn't too overpowered or anything. But yeah, I don't know, he's just kind of a crappy guy, so it's hard to like any of the characters, given that the characters are bad people. And then on top of that, at least they could be funny bad people, they could be entertaining bad people, but they're not. It's kind of dull, it's kind of boring. From the pacing, it feels like, though I will admit the visuals are actually really solid, from the pacing, it's like they didn't have faith in their own show. Like, they show a bunch of girls from the future of the series and they try to hint at them as best they can in the show itself, but they don't actually really appear in the show itself. The show is mostly just, the majority of an episode will be diving through a dungeon or something like that, and then there will be just sex scenes where they're really showing everything. They're showing you everything except the content warning, because I'm gonna have to talk about some adult topics. Everything except the penis and vagina, they're pretty much showing you. And so a lot of people, when they see fan service or ecchi stuff or attractive characters in general, they'll be like, oh, just go watch porn. But unironically, that's why I put this in the don't recommend area, because what do you really get out of this? Like, again, it was fine enough for me to finish, but if you're looking for titillation, if you're looking to beep the guppy, unironically, go look at hentai. Unironically, just go to Gelboro or something. Like, instead of just seeing it, like, partially kind of hinted at, showing everything but the act itself, just literally, unironically, go look at hentai. And if you're looking for a good isekai story, it's not like there's a shortage of them. Like, there are so many isekai, and probably 80% of them that you check out are going to tell a better story than this. So the story wasn't great, the visuals were solid, it was good enough for me to finish watching, but I really had to just push through to get to the end of it. And I'll be honest with you, again, I don't know what it offers for anybody. And the only other one that I don't recommend, I'm gonna have to actually look at the title for this one, is Mama Haha no Tsurego ga Motokano Datta, or My Stepmom's Daughter is My Ex. And the title's kind of explanatory right there when it comes to what the show is about. It's about a guy whose parent gets married and their new step-sibling is their ex-girlfriend. And, or slash boyfriend, I guess, if you're looking at it from the female main character's point of view. But another reason why this one is down so low, the characters aren't very likable. Like, the male lead is kind of a jerk. The side characters aren't particularly great people either. There are definitely some things they said or did that made me think, wow, I would, if I were, like, still in high school or whatever, this is the type of person that I just would not hang out with. And the female lead was the only one that I think was kind of not a jerk or whatever, but it's not like she was a great character or anything. And it leads me into two big problems that leads into my overall statement that's going to be the same as the last anime. The two big things are the characters not being very likable, and the other thing is, this is actually kind of a pretty cool concept. I like the idea of the concept of, okay, your parent gets remarried, and then, oh wow, it turns out you're going to have to live now with your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend as a step-sibling. And how does the show and how does the story go on from there? I think that's an interesting concept. It does pretty much nothing with that concept. Like, there's maybe like one-ish scene where I felt like the fact that they're step-siblings was even important whatsoever. So it really just doesn't do much of anything with the concept. So those two things combining together hits me again with the who is this for, in the sense that it's like, if you want a romance, you're going to find at least 3 or 4 better ones, even on this list of 50. If you want a slice of life, you're going to find much, much better on this list. If you want a comedy, you're going to find much better. There really isn't it, like, it was good enough for me to finish, but I wouldn't recommend it, given that unless you've seen like every anime romance ever, if you've seen like every slice of life ever, there's probably just something better for you to watch. Next up, we start D tier, and at the bottom of D tier, I would put Orel Ars Notoriatsune or Smile of the Ars Notoria, the animation. And some of you might be like, why is this one not in D minus? But okay, basic premise. This feels very much kind of like a gacha bait type anime, but I don't know if there was never a gacha, surprisingly, or if the gacha got shut down really early, maybe even before the anime came out, as happens sometimes. But it's basically just girls hanging around a magic school, eating lunch, having tea, playing hide and seek, and then we get these random cuts to knights just dismembering and murdering people, and they try to have this really serious story and everything, and there's lots of, like, again, blood and dismemberment and stuff. So I feel like this is maybe another Who Is It For? Like, the visuals were pretty okay and everything, and like, it was nice, it was chill, it was whatever, until it was very not chill or whatever. But it makes me think, who is it for? Because I feel like the people who want to sit down and watch a nice, chill, comfy anime about girls eating lunch at a magic school or whatever are gonna maybe be put off by the blood and dismemberment. And for the people who want the blood and dismemberment and maybe like a deeper underlying story, you're going to be put off by 70% of the episode or so being just girls hanging out, playing hide and seek, or eating. So it seems like whatever you're looking for in the series, you're probably going to be put off by another aspect of the series. But the reason that I have it in D rather than D minus is I said all of these were good enough to finish, but this one delves into bad, but fun bad. I think Ars Notoriatsune is fun bad. It's messy, it's sloppy, it's all over the place, it's hard to tell what's going on, especially towards the ending. The ending to me is hilarious. I feel like a lot of people would be really disappointed and mad about it, but I just thought it was hilarious. So it is, again, one of those things where it's dull, it's not that great, but I wouldn't say that I wouldn't recommend it, just because there is something here for somebody if you want to have kind of a weird ride. Next up is Sore Demo Ayumu wa Yosete Kuru, or When Will Ayumu Make His Move? This one is, I think, made by the same creator as Takagi-san and Kunoichi Tsubaki, but it ended up pretty low on this list. It is about a guy who joins a shogi club because he has a really big crush on the captain or head of the shogi club, and he's like, if I defeat her, then I'm going to ask her out and confess my love and all of that. And it is very much an extremely simple, extremely basic slice of life rom-com. That's what you're going to get. You're going to get slice of life rom-com. And yeah, that's, again, it's in D tier because it's very basic. The animation's basic, the music's basic, the story's basic. It is just, you're going to get what you're going to get. And it's a fun enough ride, even though, again, the production quality is a little on the side. It's alright enough that I was going to kind of give it C tier until the ending. I think the ending is a big wet fart. The ending really lets it down. The ending takes it down an entire grade level for me. I was not a fan of the ending to it. So again, it was good enough to finish, but it just was kind of a very, very basic slice of life rom-com. 46th place is Saikin Yatota Maid ga Ayashi, or The Maid I Hired Recently is Mysterious. And it's very much in the vein of the last one. This one is about a young bochama, a young rich kid whose parents die, and this maid just shows up and is like, I'm going to start being your maid now. I'm going to start taking care of you now. And he's always wondering, is she trying to seduce me to take my money? Is she trying to murder me? What's going on? Why is she so mysterious? And it's actually pretty sweet for the most part. The character work's pretty good. It's pretty funny. The animation is basic. It is kind of just your basic slice of life comedy. The reason it's down in D tier rather than just a base level C tier is I wasn't a big fan of the main character. I felt like he was the weak link. I feel like the characters around him were pretty good. There were some pretty good stories told with them. The comedy with them was pretty good. Everything around the main character was, I think, really nice. It was just a comfy anime, if you want a comfy anime. But the main character himself, I wasn't a big fan of, and that's just kind of why it ends up here. And now we get to what is both the top of D tier and also 45th place. I'm kind of not going by exact number places until we get to the top 10, because this is the kind of thing where towards the middle, some of these could be interchangeable depending on how I'm feeling at the day, but that's why I arranged them into general grades or tiers. But the top here is Shikakumon no Saikyo Kenja, or the strongest sage with the weakest crest. It is about, well, it's one of those pseudo isekai. I've probably seen 3 or 4 shows have this same setup before already, where somebody is very, very powerful, already in an isekai fantasy world, then they die, get reincarnated in that same isekai fantasy world. So it's kind of like a pseudo isekai. It is a reincarnation, but not really another world. And it's just kind of okay. I think it starts out a bit slow, but it gets better as the season goes along until towards the end. It's pretty solid. I think the characters are okay. I think the story's okay. The visuals are okay. Everything about it is okay. That's why it's top of D tier. Every single thing about it, I would argue, is basic, is simple, but I would say that nothing about it delves into bad. Nothing about it is bad. It's just all very basic and simple. I'm going to start C tier with Kokyu no Karasu, or Raven of the Inner Palace. This one is generally, I wish I could remember from memory the spiel they do at the beginning of every single episode, but it's generally almost like a fictional Chinese-esque country. It's like not based on actual real China, I don't believe, but with an emperor and all of his consorts and concubines and the drama between all of that, and about specifically the Raven consort, who is kind of a spiritualist or medium who speaks to the dead and solves mysteries and all of that. And I feel like if you really like C-dramas or historical dramas, this might be up your alley. This might really be for you. As for me, that's not my cup of tea or anything, but I still thought it was pretty good. It was solid. Like, everything about the production is just solid. It's not anything incredible or anything like that, but I do think the stories that they tell are pretty good. The character work that they do is really solid. So again, it's just a really solid, nice anime that I would recommend if you really like this kind of setting, if you really like this kind of thing with the solving mysteries and the concubines and the drama there with the royals and everything. If you like that kind of thing, I think this could really be for you. If you don't like that kind of thing, it could really not be for you. Maybe you would think C tier is even too high for it, but I thought it was just solid. Next up is Aharen-san wa Hakarenai, and this one is generally about a main male lead who is a bit expressionless and kind of awkward, not many friends or anything, and a female lead that seems the same way, but it's really just that she's very, very quiet and not really good with boundaries. But the two of them become friends, they really hit it off, and I won't spoil if there's any romance here or not. I'm not gonna spoil that. Maybe there's some romance, maybe there isn't. Either way, it's a nice slice of life comedy. It's cute, it's funny, and I'm not saying that in like, ooh, whoa, or anything. I mean, like, legitimately, it is cute and it is funny. And very, very few characters get any attention in it. It is very main character focused, main character centric, but I think that is still good because the main characters are handled well. You're not going to get any crazy development. You're not going to get any crazy storytelling. It is just a fun slice of life comedy with maybe some romance in there, who knows. That's just a nice, chill, comfy watch. Next is Koi wa Seikai Seifuku no Ato de, or Love After World Domination, and so it's about the Red Ranger, the main team of like a Sentai team, falling in love with one of the villainesses of like the evil villain group. Very, if you're in the West, you know, probably more familiar with Power Rangers. It is like villain and Red Ranger falling in love with each other. And it's really nice. It's creative. It's funny. The visuals are pretty good. I love some of the side characters and the subplots, especially like Culverine Bear and Steel Princess or Iron Princess, whatever she was called. I think that subplot was really, really fun. There are a lot of good characters here. There's a lot of really good comedy. It's overall a good series. I think maybe the start and middle are a little bit better than the end, but I don't 100% remember. I just remember it all being pretty solid. The only one complaint I'd have with the whole show really is that the characters' ages don't really make sense. So you're going to watch this for the first few episodes, and the characters, their stories, their struggles, they're things that are going to be relatable to and make sense for people that are maybe in college, maybe in your early to mid 20s. That makes the most sense. But then there's going to be an occasional scene here and there where they're like, oh yeah, these characters are actually in high school and they're actually like 15. Even though the whole rest of the show, them being in high school or being 15, doesn't really make sense. I don't know why they decided to do that. Maybe, again, to try to keep the homage to like Sentai Power Ranger type stuff. But really, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for them to be that young with a lot of the stories that they tell. So I would say that disconnect is really the only complaint that I have. But yeah, that's, again, if you're interested in the concept, go for it. It's just a solid rom-com. Next up is Mahotsukai Reimeki, or Dawn of the Witch, and this one is going to be a little contentious. It's a spin-off from Zero Hajimete Maho no Ko? Was that the name of it? I don't remember. It's been years since I watched it. But you don't really need to watch that to understand the spin-off. It's just sort of set in the same universe, features some of the same characters, but it's mainly about a teacher at a magic school and the 3 students from the magic school going out to this village and living there. There's drama. I won't spoil all the different things that happen. It's kind of just chill slice of lifey a lot of the time. Though there is, again, content warning, some like more gory stuff, some more violent stuff. Just given that it is about, you know, witches and fighting and that kind of stuff. But it is pretty tame, all things said. I think a lot of people will say that it was too boring for them, but I thought it was solid. I had fun with it. I will say, as much as I think the main character is maybe one of my least favorite characters, boy is he, and I hate the slang based. It's one of my least favorite slang, and it has been for years, but wholly based main character. That's all I'm going to say there. I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where this one, I think more than a lot of the ones I've talked about before, isn't going to be for everyone, because a lot of people probably aren't going to want to check it out without checking out the original show. And honestly, the original show was just kind of okay, maybe C or B tier. This is, again, just kind of C tier. It's just an okay series. If it's something that you think you'll be into, go for it. I think it's worth watching for Los Sensei alone, but that's just me. Yeah, either way, that's all I got on this one. And for what I have in 40th place, delving into the top 40, we have Gai Kotsukishi-sama Tadaima Isekai Eodakake Chu, or Skeleton Knight in Another World, and that title really just explains it. It's about a skeleton knight in another world. That's pretty much what you're getting. You're getting a skeleton knight who was reincarnated, but we don't really see the reincarnation or anything. He just wakes up, second one of the anime, he's a skeleton knight in another world, and he goes around killing slavers, freeing slaves, saving people who are about to be... Like, I feel like the most famous scene from this is from, like, the beginning of the anime, where there's, like, a woman about to be sexually assaulted and everything, and everybody's like, wow, this is so grotesque. But literally, he just comes in, kills all the people that were about to sexually assault her, and moves on with his life. And that's kind of the anime. People will have a problem, people will have something bad happening, he just comes in, kills the bad guys, and that's what you get. And honestly, the visuals are pretty mid. There's a lot of basic animation, a lot of still frames, but the story is solid. I think the comedy is really solid. I could go for a season 2 of this. I would have fun with it. I think for as mid as the visuals are, I think the story and characters and comedy is all just really fun, really enjoyable. This is definitely like popcorn content to watch while eating. It is very solid in that sense. I guess, yeah, other than the visuals, the only criticism I would have is, so there were multiple isekai I've seen where the voice actor for Zoro from One Piece does the voices for the isekai villain. And again, I don't want to hate such a legendary voice actor that's been doing Zoro for all these decades, but at the same time, he really hams it up. He really overacts these isekai villains. And he does it a little bit later on in this list for Isekai Yakyoku. But it's not as grievous there. Here, he just really just hams it up with his most high-pitched, crazy, whoa voice. And it is very silly. It's a bit ridiculous. I really, again, I don't want to criticize such a renowned voice actor, but he really just does some wacky stuff with this villain voice, and I'm just like, I don't know if that was the way to go. I do not know if that was the proper way to have done this. But that would be the only other criticism I have. And maybe if you don't get distracted by it, if you think it adds to the goofiness, then like, you know, maybe that even adds to the series for you. But for me, that was a bit of a choice. Next up is in 39th place, and it's weird that it's in 39th place because I consider this show, I guess I just liked all of these 50 that I watched, at least to some degree, because or else I wouldn't have finished them. But I really liked this show for it to have ended up all the way down in 39th. It's Hakuzume Koban Joshi no Gyakushu, or Police in a Pod. And this one was really fun. It's a police workplace comedy featuring two female officers and everything, and they get a bit into, you know, what it's like as a female officer in a male-dominated job and different things that they have to go through as police in Japan. And I think it's very nice. The art style is really unique. I think the characters are done well. They tell some really good stories in here. The comedy is really good often. But I will say the one takeaway that I got from this, and the one thing that I remember most to say about it, is there is some tonal whiplash. There will be a just, oh, haha, funny, we got called for this goofy thing, and then, oh, that guy just hung himself. And then there'll be, oh, wow, workplace comedy, and oh, that 13-year-old just got raped. And then it'll be, oh, wow, isn't that such a silly thing for a cop to be thinking? And oh, you just saw an infant die in a car crash. And it does that. It has that tonal whiplash on you. And that is the one thing that really sticks with me. And I feel like not just as a police officer, but probably as a fireman, an EMT, anybody in one of those first responder jobs can probably say, that's kind of probably accurate to life. There's probably a lot of days where it's just like, wow, today was boring, nothing happened, and then bam, worst thing you can imagine. Or wow, we got called out for this really silly, dumb reason, and oh, worst thing you can imagine. I think that it's probably a bit realistic in that sense. But yeah, that's the thing I remember most about it. Next up is Fantasy Bishoujo Juniku Oji-san to, or Life with an Ordinary Guy Who Reincarnated into a Total Fantasy Knockout. And this one is, again, as the title kind of explained, there are these two co-workers, guys I think in their like early to mid 30s, who get reincarnated, but one of them gets reincarnated into an anime waifu while the other one just stays as a guy in his 30s. So they both get reincarnated, and there's a bit of like isekai, very silly, it's a very nonsense comedy, silly type of comedy. Sort of rom-com between them. There's a bit of romance in there, and it's actually really fun. It's really funny. I actually dropped this one and watched something else instead, and then I ended up dropping something, and I picked this back up, and I'm really glad I did, because again, it's above over, what, over 10 of the others? Yeah, a dozen of the others. It's pretty solid. The visuals are okay, but it is very funny. If you want just a funny comedy, you're not really going to get deep stories here. I mean, the character development's okay for like a nonsense comedy, but what you're going to get here is mainly just comedy. Certain characters, like I think his name was Schwartz, were hilarious. Schwartz's entire thing is that he's also an isekai protagonist, and he is like your more typical isekai protagonist, and so just having him also as part of the story is very, very funny. So all of that I think is really, really fun. Again, that's kind of basically just what you're going to get for it. The only real big criticism I have, other than it just being a little basic, is Jinguji, the one main character who didn't get reincarnated into an anime waifu and he's still just a guy in his 30s, is at times not that likable for me. At times. Most of the time it's fine though. Most of the time it's really funny. 37th place is Tribe 9, and it is about extreme baseball. Baseball where all gang problems in the future are solved by the gangs just playing extreme, brutal, violent baseball against each other where they can kill each other while playing baseball. And it it sounds like a very silly premise, but the story, especially towards the end, is actually really good. I actually really like the story. I really like the characters. The visuals and the direction and production quality are so much better than I expected they would be for something like this. So I actually surprisingly really enjoyed this one. I like this one a lot. The only things I'd say is that kind of make it T tier or C tier is they could have done a lot more with their setting. They don't really do too much with the whole baseball setting and everything, and don't really do too much with a lot of the characters. And another thing, I'm not a fan of the character designs. The character designs to me look very kids anime. They look very Beyblade, Yu-Gi-Oh-esque. I actually think the character designer might be the same one who did Danganronpa, so maybe fans of that will, sort of identify with the art style and like it. But I wasn't a big fan of the character designs. I felt like they looked a bit too kiddie, a bit too childish for the story that was being told with them. And yeah, I guess that's about it. I wasn't into that. I think they could have done more with the setting. And I think that one thing that bothers me, not about the show itself, but this is kind of a meta thing, I'm not holding this against the show, is when I finished watching it, I thought the last few episodes were really solid. I was like really excited about it. I was like, let me go look up Tribe 9 stuff. And literally all of the discussion that I could find was just, whoa, Zoomer, like big Zoomer fan base, YouTubers and streamers voice acted in the dub, and that's literally all anyone talked. Nobody talked about the show itself. Everybody was just talking about these YouTubers or streamers voice acting in it. And no hate to them. I don't watch dubs, so I mean, they probably did a fine job. I mean, no hate to them for doing that. No hate to the people who are fans of them or anything. But it just kind of bothered me. I was like, nobody's talking about the show itself. It's just all this thing that's not even related to the show itself, but to the dub of it. So that did annoy me a little bit, but I'm not really holding that against the show. I just wish more people were talking about and appreciating it for itself. Also, I realize I'm saying Zoomer as if I'm not also probably technically in that demographic, but I'm old at this point, is what I consider myself. But going into the next one, this is actually the top of C tier, and it's going to be Kono Healer Mendokusai, or in English they said Don't Hurt Me, My Healer, which I'm not a big fan of that English title. And so this one is going to be one that a lot of people might disagree with me on. This show gets a lot of bad review scores, it gets a lot of hate, and I'm usually not one to say, oh, somebody doesn't like something because they don't understand it. I think that's a cop-out that people use a lot, but it's also true sometimes. I think that a lot of people that don't like Kono Healer Mendokusai don't understand it. It is a manzai comedy. So if you want to know what it's about a healer who is kind of, really, really toxic and makes fun of the main knight, Alvin. She makes fun of him a lot. She doesn't do a great job as a healer a lot. And they get into a bunch of wacky nonsense comedy shenanigans. And it is a manzai comedy. I've said that a few times. Manzai comedy is usually a stand-up routine where there's two characters and maybe, some guests come in. And generally one is wacky and silly and tells a weird story, where the other is the straight man. And they're supposed to be the grounded, realistic one. But they just get more and more upset, what are you talking about? This is crazy. This is wild. Am I going crazy here? And that is what Carla and Alvin, the main characters here, are. The animation here, the story told here, is fairly simple, but I think it's good. I think the comedy really hits a lot. The comedy is really good a lot of the time. And yeah, that's just basically the gist of it. It's just these two characters going back and forth with each other, telling a comedy story, but with animation to accompany it, with some characters as guests coming in here and there. That is really what it is. And I will say though I've said a lot of good things about it, the reason it is still top of C tier, but still in C tier is, though I will defend it from people who don't really get it, don't really understand it, it was still only just okay. I'm defending it from people saying, oh, it's 5 out of 10, or oh, it's awful, it's terrible, it's not funny, it's not good looking. A lot of people, I'll defend them because they don't really get what it's going for. It's not really going for some deep fantasy or anything. But it is still just kind of okay. It's still just All right. Carla is, of course, the highlight, the best part by a long shot. But either way, that wraps up C tier. So we're actually starting off B tier in 35th place. So there's 35 anime that I consider, B tier isn't just good like C tier or like meh, average, whatever like C tier. These are actually anime that I thought were good. So 35th place, bottom of B tier. I'm putting Sabikui Bisco. This is going to be a little bit of a weird one to describe. So it's set in a post-apocalypse where there's like this rust disease that's been covering people and taking people out. All the buildings, all the machinery is rusted, and it follows the story of a doctor and a mushroom keeper trying to find the rust eater mushroom that's going to cure the rust and, save people connected to them. I don't want to get too spoilery with it, but that's generally the thing. It's a journey through this rusty post-apocalypse world with these giant sea creatures that have developed and adapted in it. And that's what you're going to get here. It's a good, fun, solid anime with a good story. The style, I think, is really nice. The animation, production quality is nice. And I think that the characters are very solid. The only thing that puts it down in B tier, other than that it's very good in all those other aspects, but I don't think it's not transcendent. It's not great. The thing that I think really holds it back, though, is the ending. I'm not sure, even to this day, how I feel about the ending. I kind of liked some aspects of the ending a lot, but then there are some aspects I really didn't like. So just know that I'm kind of conflicted on the ending. And no getting into it, that the ending will maybe leave you conflicted. You might love it, though, or you might hate it. So, you're really flipping a coin with this one. But everything else I thought was really, really good. And I'm pretty sure I've heard that season 2 was in production, and this felt like a contained story. It felt like they did everything. It felt like, again, I guess spoilers for season 1, it felt like they kind of completed the story. This felt like a story in itself. I thought season 1 was just going to be it. We were just going to be over. But apparently they're doing a season 2. I don't know how, but yeah, I guess that's coming. Next up is Paripikome, or your boy Koming. And some of you might think I'm underrating this one. I think I might be overrating it kind of a bit. I think I maybe should have put it a bit lower. But it is solid. It's okay. It's generally about the character Kome or Koming from, the Three Kingdoms period, getting reincarnated into modern day Japan and getting into the sort of club music scene. And it's just kind of okay. It's kind of all right. It is really, you've probably seen the opening. It is carried to popularity by its opening. And the opening gives you this idea that it's going to have this really good direction or art style, and it kind of is basic. Like, the art style's basic, the animation's basic. It's okay, don't get me wrong, it's not bad. The direction isn't that crazy, and I think just the fact that after this I watched Bocchi the Rock, currently I've been kind of watching D4DJ, I'm watching these good music anime, and thinking back to this, one of the problems I had even when watching through this was that this is a music anime, but for something like D4DJ, the background music is immaculate. It's so good. And they have so many songs, so many original songs. Bocchi the Rock later on has so many original songs, and they hit. They're good. But this, like, the background music's whatever. And there's barely, for this to be a music anime, there's like 2 songs, like 2, 3 maybe original songs in the whole anime, and they just kind of repeat those. They repeat the same songs over and over again. And they aren't even they're okay. They're not even that great. So honestly, I think I really overrated this. Don't get me wrong. Maybe this is just a me thing. Maybe it's just me personally. You might like it more than I do. I do think it still deserves B tier, I guess. It really was solid. It really was a fun watch. But it's just compared to other slice of lives, compared to other music anime, I actually think there's probably just better to watch. But if you like this kind of thing, it might be for you. My 33rd place pick is Birdie Wing Golf Girl Story, and actually this one had a killer first 8 episodes. So title explains it pretty well. It is a golf girl story. It's girls playing golf. The golf isn't actually all that important. It's more about the girls, though. It's more about the struggles they go through, the character arcs and everything. And like I said, those first 8 episodes, they're heat. Like Birdie Wing was cooking something. They were really, really good. And then there's a shift into kind of a new arc, and it's still good. There's still a lot of good character work there, but it is a lot less exciting. It's less compelling to me. The stakes are less high. So to me, you watch the first 8 episodes, this is a good anime. This is solid. I think the music is good. The visuals are good. The characters are really, really, really good. It falls off a little bit, and there is some weird production stuff where there's some characters in the opening that I'm like, they didn't appear in the actual anime whatsoever. I think that this was originally supposed to be 2 cores back to back, but then eventually they were like, crap, we have to end it after 1 core. And so by now, the second part or second season or however they rebranded it, that's already come out, and I'll watch that when I do 2023 or whatever. But yeah, there were some weird production issues. It kind of cuts off a little abruptly. Again, it felt like they were going to be continuing the story. But yeah, just know that I thought that this was actually this was a really good one. They kind of cooked. 32nd place is Yofkash no Ta. The frigging ending. They named the anime. They named the manga that the anime is based on after the ending, and then they got the song to use as the ending song. And man, it is style over substance, but oh my god, does it ooze style. This is maybe one of the most stylish, maybe one of the most gorgeous anime I have here, and I put it at 32nd place, or call of the night. It is the definition, the very definition of style over substance. But oh boy, the style. The music. Ooh. Oh man, in the background of almost every episode, it's so good. The direction is gorgeous. The visuals are incredible. I think all of the characters around the main character, they got some pretty good characters in there. But where it falls apart, why something so gorgeous, something so beautiful, just a feast for the eyes and ears, is in B tier, like not even in the top 30, is, oh boy, the story's not very good. And the main character also kind of sucks. The main character kind of sucks, which is ironic because he's the one that's not a vampire. The story is generally, again, I haven't given you a good idea of what it's about. It's about a kid meeting a vampire, and the vibe of the story they're trying to tell is a story about, going outside of your comfort zone and growing up, becoming an adult. But I think where the story falls apart is the story's idea of mature stuff, its idea of adult stuff, is once again, ironically, pretty immature. Its idea of adulthood and maturity is very, very immature, and it just generally, the main story behind it isn't very good. The main character, I don't like him, nor do I think he's very well written. And that's kind of a bummer, because I would say I would really, really recommend this one if you want to just see something that looks and sounds gorgeous. But I will warn you ahead of time that the substance just is not there. Next up is Gundam Suisei no Majo, where The Witch from Mercury, and the second season has already aired, so I'm going to be watching that for, I guess it was 2023. This one, maybe I hyped myself up too much. It's a new Gundam anime with a female protagonist. There's some Yuri stuff, some girls love stuff going on, and I'm a big fan of that. So I was like, oh wow, this is exciting. I loved Gundam as a kid. Wow, female protagonist, that's different. That's cool. I like it. Wow, there's some Yuri romance stuff maybe blooming here. I'm interested. You've hooked me. You've got me. And so much of the review scores were good. Visually, from the outside looking in before getting into it, it looked really good. So I really hyped this one up in my head, and then I watched it. And it is another kind of style over substance anime. Again, I ranked it kind of highly over some of these others because it is really good. It's really good, but it is just good. It's not great. It feels like there's a lot of filler. It feels like the fights are cool and all, and most episodes are Gundam fights, but a lot of the fights don't feel like they have very much going for them in terms of story or stakes or why they're fighting, and a lot of it just feels like filler. It feels like we get to see so little and know so little about the characters. Like, there's so many characters that, like, you can point at them and be like, oh yeah, they're a main character. And I'm like, don't gaslight me. They have been on screen for like a minute 30 seconds tops. Like, the characters are not very well developed. Not many of them get very much time whatsoever. The story itself doesn't get much time. Like, there's so many other anime on this list where I can just list off so many things that happened. They did so much in 12 episodes, whereas this, it's like, they barely did anything in 12 episodes. And then so many characters in so many other series where I'm like, I know so much about this character, so much about who they are, how they act and react in certain circumstances. And then I'm like, I don't know that for Mercury's characters. I really don't. I think that this looks really, really nice. The music's really nice. The setting and the vibe is just really nice. It's really fun to watch. And if you just like to watch robots shooting at each other, it's pretty solid for that too. But know that there's not much story behind that. There's not much stakes behind that. There's not much character development, like, at all behind that. And it feels like they were really cooking some exciting stuff. And hopefully in season 2, when I watch that, hopefully that stuff pays off. But at least for season 1, just looking at season 1 in a vacuum without knowing what happens in season 2, yeah, not a lot happens. I think the ending's really compelling. The ending's pretty nice. But yeah, pretty much nothing happens. Feeling like Zorro out here. Next up, we're delving into our top 30 with Shokei Shoujo no Virgin Road or The Executioner and Her Way of Life. And honestly, I might be underrating this one a little bit. It's definitely underrated by anime fans as a whole. I don't really understand how this one didn't blow up and get really popular, when in my opinion, worse shows that are similar have blown up and gotten really popular. So basically this is about an isekai world, and this is going to be kind of spoilery for the first 5 minutes of the first episode, because I can't really tell you what it's about without giving you a little bit of a description of the first few minutes of the first episode. It's basically an isekai world, and this girl gets isekai'd into this isekai world, but in this isekai world there are characters who are executioners. The executioners are meant to kill people who get isekai'd here, because people who get isekai'd here in the past have been so powerful, and eventually their powers have just grown and gone so out of control that they've basically become, weapons of mass destruction. So whenever somebody new gets isekai'd here, an executioner needs to hunt them down and take them out before they can go all crazy isekai. And so this world has a lot of fantasy aspects, but it also has a lot of like modern, production aspects, which is a really cool juxtaposition. You can see where the cultures of the people who have been isekai'd here in the past have influenced the world itself. But the girl who gets isekai'd here, turns out her ability is a time rewinding power. So people trying to kill her will just rewind time, and she's still alive here. So the story progresses as the main characters need to find a way to kill the main character, because eventually her power as an isekai protagonist will be so strong that she could threaten to destroy the entire world. But at the same time, she's our main character. I guess we don't want to kill her, but we do want to kill her. She can't be killed. So that's basically the premise. And I think it's underrated. The visuals are solid. The characters and story are, again, really solid. The visuals are good. I think the ending was pretty good too. I think the premise is very interesting, and I think they handle that premise pretty well. I've talked a lot before about these series presenting us with concepts and not really living up to their concepts or using their concepts that well, but this did. So again, it's weird that this is underrated. It feels like similar but worse shows are a lot more popular. I don't really get it. Next up is Tokyo 24-ku, or Tokyo 24th Ward, and this is going to be a complicated one, so you're going to have to stick with me here. It's basically about these 3 protagonists who will get a call, and I'm going to try to be as spoiler-free as possible, and whenever they receive a call, the call will be a trolley problem. This is Trolley Problem, the anime. It's like, there's a train heading towards this person, and you can save this person by stopping the train, or you can let this person get hit by doing this, or you can save this person, but everybody on the train dies by derailing it, or something. And also, when that happens, they get superhuman abilities for a short time until the trolley problem is resolved. And honestly, the superhuman abilities don't actually come into play that much except for looking cool in animation, so the story probably didn't even need those. And speaking of cool animation, the stories they tell and the animation they have in the first couple episodes, maybe even the first half or so, are like really good. They tell some really good stories and it looks really good, and then the animation kind of falls off and the story very much falls off. It definitely starts out very, very good and gives you a lot of hype and a lot to think about, and then it doesn't live up to itself. It doesn't live up to the expectations that it sets for itself. And on top of that, I think that maybe it needed to be longer. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe they tried to fit the entire anime into 12 episodes and that was the problem. Maybe it should have been a longer term series. But yeah, either way, trust me, it's very good. You will probably enjoy the vast majority of it. I think you will really enjoy the early parts, but this is one where I have to give you a warning that the ending really does fall off. 28th place is Isekai Oji-san, or Uncle from Another World. This one is a comedy about a guy who, again, spoilers for the first few minutes of the first episode because I can't give you the basic premise without saying that. He goes to visit his uncle, who is, for I think the time is 17 years. For 17 years, his uncle's been in the hospital in a coma, and while he's visiting him, he wakes up, and his uncle's like, what the heck? I'm back in the real world? And it turns out the uncle, who, fell into the coma 17 years ago after, I guess, getting hit by a truck or something like that, I think. Turns out he got isekai'd. He's been in an isekai for the past 17 years, and now he's woken up and he's back in the real world. And so the story is basically about the uncle who is now back in the real world, recapping his isekai adventure to his nephew. Meanwhile, he was a terrible isekai protagonist. He had every chance to be this like overpowered character, getting this harem of girls like your typical isekai, and he kind of fumbles it every step along the way. And so it's very, very funny. Also, the gap is very funny. The sort of age gap or time gap where he is constantly surprised by modern technology, constantly like, what happened to Sega? Why isn't Sega making consoles anymore? And things like that, things like him not really getting if a girl is acting like a tsundere towards him because the tsundere wasn't like a popular archetype before he went into the isekai, and things like that are really, really funny. It's a really funny comedy. The art style is also really unique and different. I like it a lot. I think some of the things they did were a bit hit and miss, but overall, I enjoyed it, and I would really love to see a season 2. I would love to see more of this, and what I'd like to see more of is I want to see more crossover between the isekai and the real world. I would love if some of his companions, friends, whatever, from the isekai were also able to somehow come over to the real world. I think that would be very funny. Also, a big part of this as well, a big part of the comedy is that the uncle retains his isekai powers in the real world, but of course he needs to hide his isekai powers because that would be kind of weird or crazy in the real world. But he does use his isekai powers to try to like fake videos to become a famous YouTuber. So again, all of it's very, very funny. I would recommend it if you're looking at a very unique, or looking for a very unique comedy, and have maybe also watched a lot of isekai, or a lot of anime in general, so that you can laugh at a lot of these jokes. 27th place is going to be Tomodachi Game. I really enjoyed this one. I think this is fun. You might have to turn your brain off a little bit for it, but it's very fun. It came like right after Squid Game was a popular thing, even though I'm sure this manga probably existed before then. So I was like, are they just trying to capitalize on the popularity of that? But it is kind of what you're thinking of. It's about friends, Tomodachi, being put into a game where there is some high risk, high stakes stuff on the line. And a lot of the stuff that happens is kind of illogical, kind of silly. Like, there are some things where I'm like, so if all these people are watching this game happen, like, how does this work like when you compare it to real life, in the sense that like, yeah, what are the logistics of it? Logistically, a lot of the Tomodachi game doesn't make sense. But if you turn off your brain and just have fun with the story and characters, the story and characters are pretty good. It's pretty compelling. It's not the best thing you're going to watch, but I think that most people will really enjoy it. I should also mention that Season 1, I didn't record this at first, but I'm coming back to add this in. Season 1 isn't very conclusive. There isn't a really solid ending, so they might not do a Season 2. Who knows if we'll get a Season 2, but just know that it's not really a complete story in one season. For a show like this, I felt like that was maybe important to, give you a warning for. And next up, the second to highest anime in B tier is one that I really, really liked. I actually did a full review for this one, so if you want to go find that and check it out, you can. It is Slow Loop. It is about a girl who used to love going fishing with her father, and she lost her father. Lost as in he died, not lost as in literally can't find the guy. And another girl who lost both her mother and her younger sibling. And their remaining parents get remarried to each other, and so they move in together. They become kind of a new family, new step siblings, similar to my my stepmom's daughter is my ex, similar to that, but not with the romantic aspects, at least not yet that I know of. But they end up becoming sisters, and this is just really, really sweet and emotional and heartwarming, and a lot of it is about fishing. There's a lot of fishing there because the girl used to love going fishing with her father before he passed away, and it's just really nice. I love Slow Loop. I don't know if there's anything else I need to say about it. Again, my notes are really short. I have like one line of notes just saying, yeah, it's just good. It's just really sweet. It's really heartfelt. If you want something that is sweet and heartfelt and comfy, and, well, I don't know, it might get you all up in your emotions. I don't know how comfy that is for some people, but it's really, really good. And at the halfway point, or a little over halfway point, at 25th place, also the very top of B tier, I had to really fight and debate whether I wanted to put this in B tier or A tier, is RPG Fudosan, or RPG Real Estate. It is, as described, it's a fantasy RPG type world where, the Demon King actually already got defeated, or Demon King, whatever the big threat was, already got defeated. So they're in an era of peace now. So now you have people like mages and fighters and priests and all that, but they need new jobs and just to live an everyday life in this fantasy world. And so it's about a girl who starts working at a real estate agency who has to, the real estate agents, they're like, oh, you're a knight. We need to find the proper housing for you. You're like Pegasus tamer, and you have to also stable your Pegasus somewhere. Let's figure that out. Or like you're a goblin. We need to find goblin approved housing, things like that. And it's really a very, very fun idea for a show, and they do a great job at having fun with that fun idea. And you would think that it'd just be a nice, cute, funny, simple comedy, like a slice of life comedy, and it is. But it tells such a good story. Like, the characters shouldn't be this good. They don't need to be this good. The story doesn't need to be this good. And yet it is. They go above and beyond, not just giving you like the cute slice of life stuff, but also hitting you with a good story on top of that. I think that was really, really good. And also, I've got to say, it seems like the touristy opinion is, man, there's so much fan service in anime. There's fan service everywhere. But before this, in the whole half a list, I don't really remember any, if any, fan service in any show before this, other than the one that's literally an ecchi, almost hentai. But this one does have fan service, and I gotta say, I respect it. Give us some fan service here and there. So I thought that was another thing to respect about it. So we enter A tier with 24th place. These are the ones that I thought were like really above just good. These were like great anime, very fun, ones that you could watch while eating or doing stuff, or you could just marathon them, and I think you could have fun either way. But we start off with our 24th anime out of these 50, Kunoichi Tsubaki no Mune no Uchi, You're in the Heart of Kunoichi Tsubaki, and this one is certified cute and confirmed funny. It is, what you're gonna get out of it is a fun, slice of life comedy with some really solid, good action. It's basically about this group of kunoichi or female ninja who are in training, growing up in the forest, and it kind of, to me, it gives me this vibe of old school Naruto. So I grew up on Naruto, and I think that, while the filler in Shippuden was abysmal and completely difficult to watch, the filler in the original Naruto, even going back and rewatching, I actually kind of like it because it's just them going around doing ninja stuff. And while this isn't going to have like the deeper, edgier plot that goes throughout Naruto, you're just going to get like fun young ninjas, like early teen ninjas, just doing ninja stuff, just training, some of the comedy and fun and a bit of action, and the action's pretty well done just out in the forest. That's what you're going to get. It's going to be a simple, fun slice of life comedy with some action. Now, I will say the one thing that is like the catch, the hook that they go for, is all of the boy ninjas and girl ninjas are separated from one another, trained separately, so none of these girls have ever seen guys, and so they are all like, oh, men must be horrible or scary or stupid and ugly, and they're just like monkeys or whatever, so they really don't understand guys. But the main character, Tsubaki herself, is like, I really want to see a man. I'm kind of hitting puberty. I'm kind of down bad. And every discussion I've seen, every review I've seen, and me as well, I agree with this, say that's the worst aspect of the series. That is like the most annoying or least interesting part of it, but luckily it's really not important. I feel like it's not actually brought up that often to be like one of the main hooks they try to hit you with in episode 1. So there is that, and it kind of runs converse to a lot of the things I've said before, where I'm like, wow, these shows are hitting you with some really cool concepts, and then they're not living up to those concepts, where this one's like, it's hitting you with a not cool concept, a not very interesting concept, but luckily it doesn't really do much with that. Next up is Spy Family Part 1. This is actually 23rd place for me. And Spy Family, how do I explain this without being spoilery? I guess I'll just have to say it's about a spy man, an assassin woman, and a telepath child, and the three of them sort of find each other as a found family that's kind of, hiding together as an actual family, but they each have to hide their own identities and struggles from one another, not just the outside world, but from each other. And it goes on from there to be, again, there's some good action, but it's a lot of really nice slice of life comedy with some really good character work and really good storytelling in there. I don't think it's, again, the best anime I saw. Again, it's not even in the top 20. It's not the best anime story and character wise to me. I think the visuals were really, really good. Like, their production quality was going pretty crazy. But the visuals are kind of let down a little bit by not great direction. A lot of the direction feels just kind of like by the numbers, a little sloppy, not that great. A great example is the first opening here for Spy Family Part 1. And I'm counting Part 1 and Part 2 separately because, for all intents and purposes, split core series are pretty much like two separate seasons. And both of the cores just happened to air in 2022. But yeah, the first opening is something where the visuals were really good in a vacuum, but when you put it all together into the opening, there's like some really sloppy direction there that kind of lets it down for me personally. And the reason why Part 1 is lower than Part 2 is that there is one bad episode here. One episode that I think is legitimately like not good. It's like episode 3 or 4. And again, trying to be as spoiler-free as possible, it's basically filler. Like, again, the visuals are really good, but nothing really happens. And the reason I say it's bad is because a big part of the plot going forward, especially into Part 2, is the fact that, Lloyd's a spy, and the place that he's working for is kind of understaffed. Spies are being cracked down on. They don't have all that much funding. So Lloyd is having to do a lot of work. He's having to do a lot of stuff. And a big conflict is him trying to balance his family life with his job as a spy. yet episode 3 or 4 of part 1, they just like go all out with stuff that would cost like millions of dollars and bring in like dozens, if not hundreds, of agents. And it's like that runs counter to a lot of the actual plot that we've been seeing. That runs counter to a lot of the character development going on with the characters outside of that episode. But again, it feels like a weird filler because that episode isn't really like what happens within that episode, and everything outside of it are kind of unrelated. It seems almost non-canon. So again, one episode that I just didn't think was good kind of knocks it down to here, but it is still A tier. I still think it's a really great anime. And actually right above it is where I'd put Spy Family Part 2. I think Part 2 is just slightly better. I think it gets more into the characters and does a better job with the characters. Also, there's not the one bad episode. But yeah, I would put part 2 just slightly higher because though we don't have like, you know, the exciting hook, the intro, the beginning in part 2, what we do have is a deeper exploration of the characters. And really, I would say that, you know, counting part 1 and part 2 separately, neither one of them have a very conclusive finish. It's very clear that we leave off kind of right in the middle of stuff, and we're going to pick stuff up for the next season. Again, I think season 2 part 1 at least has already aired as of me recording this. So again, whenever I do 2023 or 2024, whenever it was, I'll do season 2 part 1 or whatever. So yeah, I would say Spy Family Part 2 just slightly edges out part 1 in pretty much every way to me. And next up is Isekai Yakyoku, or Parallel World Pharmacy. It's an isekai where this guy who was a pharmacist in the real world gets, you know, isekai'd. He's sent, and this is actually a unique isekai. So usually with isekai, the main character is transported to this fantasy world as kind of themselves or an avatar of themselves, but with crazy powers, or they're reborn, reincarnated into this world. But this one, there was a boy, an actual character, an actual person in the isekai world. He gets struck by lightning, goes into a coma, and wakes up. But when he wakes up, he is the isekai main character protagonist. So he basically body jumped. He basically hijacked the body of this kid who actually existed here. So some of the stuff they get into is him like having to deal with the fact that this family pretty much lost their kid because he isn't actually their kid anymore. But also, he now has this family who has been caring about the kid that he is now embodying before now, which is a bit different. It's a really interesting way to do the isekai setup, but also I talked so much about the anime before this, how they would introduce a cool concept, but not really live up to their concept. This does its concept really, really well. The idea of somebody with pharmaceutical knowledge, a pharmacist, somebody who is a specialist in some sort of, you know, technical field where we have advanced technology, getting isekai'd into a fantasy world that doesn't have all of these technological advancements, and bringing modern medical knowledge to a fantasy world. I think it does that concept really, really well, and it's very fun to watch. I think to me, I was expecting this just to be a meh, run-of-the-mill isekai, but it turned out to be really, really fun. I do think the visuals are nothing too special. They're just kind of alright, but they are always alright. They're always solid. I never think the visuals are bad here. They're solidly, like, slightly above average at all times. They never dip to, like, really low, but they're never really great either. But yeah, I think that the production quality is just solid. It's just all right. But where it really hooks me is the characters and story. I think it does the characters and the story very, very, very well. Also, I kind of mentioned this one earlier when I talked about Zoro's voice actor being isekai villains, and he was like really hamming it up, really overacting. Ho ho ho! I am the main villain. I am evil. Like really hamming it up in Skeleton Knight, and he kind of does that here, but it's not as prominent a role And it's also, he doesn't overact it quite as much here. I do think it is kind of a little funny though. Here though, I probably wouldn't have even noticed. I probably wouldn't have even thought that if it wasn't for the fact that I watched Skeleton Knight before this, and it was just really noticeable in Skeleton Knight. Now we get into our top 20, and this is one that I don't know what people's thoughts on it are going to be. I don't know if you're going to think I'm underrating it or not, but we got Kage no Jitsu Ryokusha ni Naritakute, or The Eminence in Shadow. And this has extremely high review scores. Like, everywhere it has really high scores, and I'm just kind of like, are people memeing? Are people joking around? Because to me, I think that this is a really, really good show. Like, I thought it was really good. But I don't know. I don't think it was that good. It's basically about a guy gets, isekai'd over to an isekai world, and he kind of fakes it until he makes it. He tries to be this, crazy eminence in shadow. I am the edgelord. And he constantly, fails his way into success. And it's kind of almost like a comedic, not really a parody, but almost a comedic deconstruction of isekais in some ways, but really it's just trying to have fun. It's just a show trying to have fun, and it succeeds in having fun. It is a very fun show. It was really good. I think the quality was almost always really, really high in basically every way. The visuals, I do think the visuals actually were occasionally sometimes kind of sometimes kind of not the best, but most of the time they were great. The music was dun, 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 that they always play all the time. The music was really, really good in this. I really wanted a lot more out of the characters though. I liked the characters a lot from just what little we got. This is actually, instead of being 12 episodes, it's 20 episodes. And even with 20 episodes, I just feel like we didn't get enough. I want more of the characters. So I think there may have already been a season 2 by the time of recording this. If so, I'm excited. I really want to see more of what happens here. Next up, we've got Sono Bisque Doll wa Koi Yosuru, or My Dress Up Darling. And honestly, My Dress Up Darling, I know it's the popular title that everybody knows it by. I don't like the way it sounds. It just sounds weird to me. I don't like My Dress Up Darling as a title, but then again, Sono Bisque Doll wa Koi Yosuru is a really long title. It's a bit wordy, so I kind of just usually call it Sono Bisque Doll. But then a lot of people aren't going to recognize what I'm talking about because everybody calls it My Dress Up Darling. It is a rom-com about a guy who really likes making, traditional Japanese dolls, and a girl who really likes cosplay. And she's very open about her hobbies, but she doesn't have a lot of, technical knowledge or skills she's built over the years. Whereas he is really, really, really devoted to his hobby, but he has some trauma there from being made fun of a guy who likes making dolls. And he kind of respects, again, I'm trying not to be spoilery, he respects how open she is about her hobbies. She loves how devoted he is to his hobbies, and from the start, going into it, that it's a rom-com. So that's how things are going to end up, and it's very, very, very good. The visuals and direction are very good. I think it was episode 8 in particular, whichever one had that one beach scene, I thought was gorgeous. I thought it was so good. So I really, really did like this a lot. The romance as well is really well written. I think I said that it was probably the most well-written romance. I don't know. There are a couple others here that I think are also really well written. But I think in my relationship video, I think I said it was probably the best romance. It probably is. It was really well done. And one thing, going into this, I thought that it'd be a main character heavy show, much like I said about Ahiren-san. And I am pleasantly surprised. I thought it was going to be main character heavy and the side characters were not going to be likable. Because so often in romances, because again, I watch plenty of romance anime, so often in romances, the side characters are not good. They are annoying, or they are kind of love triangle bait, which makes you sad because in a love triangle, somebody's always going to lose. But the side characters in this were so good. And really, there aren't a lot of them. It's mainly just the two sisters. And I thought that they were incredibly good. I really, really liked the side characters. I'm like, everybody loves Marin Kitagawa. Like, everybody thinks she's a great, best girl kind of character. So, the side characters really are not going to be able to live up to that. And then, no, I was wrong. It's hard to say who best girl is because all three of them are so incredibly good as characters. I like them so much. But yeah, I guess that's all there really is for me to say about it. It's very, very good. Next up is one that for some reason is going to be very controversial. Kawaii dake janai Shikimori-san, or Shikimori's not just a cutie. I don't get why people hate this. I think just recently I saw a random tweet show up on my timeline where I think it was Chibi Reviews was like, why did people hate this anime? And all the replies were people talking about this anime as if it had killed their grandmother in front of them. Like, I don't get it. It's a cute rom-com where we start off, the main couple is already together. The sort of female lead is incredibly cool and attractive, but she just wants to be seen as cute and girly, but everybody sees her as really, really cool. Whereas her boyfriend is somebody with comedically terribly bad luck, and so she's always having to protect him, but she's trying to look less cool and more cute, but they each really provide something in each other's lives that they don't get from other people. And I think it's a really, really well done dynamic between the two of them. I had deeper thoughts on their relationship when I first watched compared to now. I do think when I first watched, the reason that I put this above My Dress Up Darling is when I first watched, I felt like I had an overall funner time with this anime, and fun means a lot to me. I think the visuals here are also very good. I think the characters and the writing are solid. I think that after going back and watching like some reaction series to My Dress Up Darling and stuff, I think that the direction is better there, and the storytelling is probably a bit better there. But I do still think I enjoyed Shikimori-san a bit more. I love the art style to it, and I just think I had more fun with it. Really, there's no excess drama. It's mostly just a slice of life, a fun time where you're looking into these characters' lives and watching these characters' lives play out without a ton of drama. It's very funny. It's very fun. Again, the romance is good, but the romance is already in some ways kind of done. But I think that makes it better because I've seen so many series where the series is about the two characters getting together. So I like that this series is presenting us a couple that is already together and showing us how they navigate issues and daily life as a couple. I think that makes it unique from other romance anime in a way that I found really enjoyable. In 17th place is Futoku no Guild, or Immoral Guild, and this one's ecchi. This one's ecchier than my normal tastes. So my normal taste for ecchi is like, you've got good comedy or good characters or a good story, but you also got like really attractive characters in there. And this does that. This goes a little bit far in some of the fan service for, again, my personal taste. Again, for me, once you hit a certain threshold, I'm like, just do hentai. Like once you hit a certain threshold, and this is close to that for me, but not quite. But this does provide really good characters in a good story. I was surprised by how good this was. I was surprised by how much fun I had watching it. It is a fantasy world, but it's kind of a bit of a modern-ish fantasy world where this guy has been training and working as a monster hunter for so long, and he's just trying to retire. He's just trying to get out of the game, but he keeps getting partied up with more members who are really bad at the job, and he has to carry the team. And that's where most of the comedy comes from, because this is going to be one of those worlds where you're going out, you're trying to hunt monsters, and if you win, you kill them. And if they win, they're going to get some titty grabs in, and then you kill them. So that's kind of the way that the fan service in this works, is they're trying to kill monsters. The monsters occasionally do some lewd, ecchi stuff, and then they they kill the monsters. But that's kind of how it goes. It's a monster hunting ecchi anime, and it's really, really, really fun. I think the characters are hilarious. The comedy is well done. One thing that I really love about it is its pacing. It feels like there is always something happening. My little chimp brain is never bored. I'm always like, oh, we're doing this now. Now we're doing this. Now we're doing this. And I love the way that we jump from thing to thing to thing. Often with shows like this, the main character is just kind of like a faceless nobody stand-in, or they're not very good. But actually the main character for this is really good. All of the girls are really good. No Maroon only comes into the story at like episode 8, but I loved him. I wish that he was in the story more, so I hope we do get a season 2. I would love a season 2 of this just because I thought it was so much fun. I would love more No Maroon for season 2. I'd love more Esune and Resumisu. I thought they were really good too, but we didn't get to see as much of them as like the main girls, the main characters. I think that this could have even been higher. I might have been putting this ecchi series in S tier. I know a lot of people hate ecchi, so that's why I'm talking like this about it, but I might have even put this in S tier, if not for one bad scene. So you know in One Piece how there's always that running gag with Momonosuke being a pervy little kid, and all the characters being angry, and it's really kind of awkward and gross feeling? Well, there is one scene here where some kids are doing some, like, I'll be real with you, straight up sexual assault. And the thing is, with the monsters, like I said, with the monsters, it's kind of a live or die. It's a fight. If you win, you kill them. If they win, they grab your boobies a little. So it's kind of like one of those, like, I don't know, it's a give and take kind of thing. You are trying to kill them, but when it's kids, when it's like actual sentient human beings, it's like, okay, that's just sexual assault now. And it's like, we get to kill the monsters. We sadly don't get to kill the kids, but I'm like, you know, taking Jordan quote a little too far. I'm like, yeah, kill them kids, screw them, kill them. It sucks. Like that scene, there's just one scene of that. It's probably only like 3 minutes, but I hated it. It's unlike the rest of the series in the way that it portrays the ecchi. And again, it goes from something that's just like all in good fun of a fantasy series to feeling kind of gross and weird, and like there's no sort of payoff to it. There's no sort of justice in the end. But yeah, that one scene probably knocks it down. It's already at 17th out of the 50 I watched, but it probably could have been even higher without just that one scene to me. And the 16th highest I'm rating is Daimon, or Recipe for Happiness. And this one, we're going from one of the least wholesome to like the most wholesome. It is about a guy who moved away from home, just kind of took off to Tokyo to pursue a career in music when he was 18, and now he hears about his father going into the hospital, so he thinks it's a really big deal, and he moves back home. He leaves his apartment, leaves what he was doing in Tokyo, leaves his girlfriend, and moves back home to his parents, who run a wakigashira, or like traditional Japanese confectionery shop. And when he moves back in there, he finds out that they've also taken in this girl Itsuka, who was recently abandoned by her parents, and so they just kind of took her in when she was left around there. And it ends up being one of those stories where he has to overcome the sort of irresponsibility that he has of just running off and chasing his dreams, and now moving back in his early 30s with pretty much nothing to show for it because he's not particularly good at anything. He has to kind of get over that in order to try to be a father figure towards Itsuka, and she has to overcome her abandonment issues, being left by her parents and everything, to kind of accept Nagumo into her life. And it's really well done. Like, the visuals are very simple, but I feel like they make up for it with a really, really nice art style. But though the visuals are simple, this to me, where I talked about some anime being style over substance, this is substance over style. The characters, the story are incredible. They are so good. The story and the characters carry it here. Nagumo all of the characters around him, Itsuka, they're all really good. The characters in this are really well done. Nagumo, though I talked about him being a character who is kind of not very good at anything, what it turns into is he's not good at making confectionery stuff. He's not good at, I mean, he's maybe like mediocre at music. He didn't really make it big moving to Tokyo or anything. But what he's good at is the way that he treats other people, the way he comes into other people's lives and improves other people's lives and lifts other people up is really, really awesome to see throughout the runtime of the show. It is very, very good. I would recommend it a ton if you're into slower, nicer series that are very much that story, that substance over style. I'd recommend it a lot. Now we're getting into the top 15, and I might actually even be underrating this one. This is Prima Doll. Prima Doll is an anime that I see nobody ever talking about. I see nobody ever bringing it up. Like, I really just tried to search for anybody talking about Prima Doll in English and Japanese. The only thing I found is a couple of Japanese people talking about buying the physical Blu-ray copy or whatever. And it's crazy because it is so good. It's actually kind of incredible. Basic premise is we're in a bit of a Cold War-ish type of world where this great war where they used humanoid robots, these androids, to fight as part of the battle and everything has ended, but tensions are still high around this world. People are still wary of these Prima Dolls, these androids that fought in the war, and we follow a cafe that's staffed by the guy who runs it, repairs dolls from the war, and has them work at the cafe. And that's kind of what we start out with. And there's a lot of slice of life stuff, but it gets deeper into espionage stuff. It gets deeper into the actual action. It gets deeper into the scars and the trauma that so many of these characters went through in the war, and it's just really good. The visuals are surprisingly really good, especially in the last episode. The last episode of this, if I was doing an episode of the year, I might legitimately give it to Prima Doll's finale. It is so good, but I will warn you before getting into this, it is also hard to watch. This is maybe second only to Made in Abyss. This is probably second only to Made in Abyss for me in hardest anime to watch, because there's a lot of trauma here. There's a lot of suffering. Being Prima is suffering. It is rough. These characters, I'll warn you before getting into it, they don't really have a good time. Bad things happen, and I'm like, oh, things will be resolved. It'll be a happy ending. It'll be just a nice, cheery slice of life or whatever. And then by the end, once I go back and rewatch, I'm crying even more, just absolute bawling, because I'm like, wow, now I know how it ends. And again, I don't want to spoil you, but I do want to give you a warning ahead of time. It's not exactly a happy ending for the characters or anything. I'm just like, this is really sad. This is a really sad one, so I wanted to warn you. But yeah, it's tragic and beautiful. The characters are absolutely incredible. I would have liked for them to have gotten even more into the deeper espionage and war stuff than they did. I doubt we'll ever see a season 2 with how conclusively this ended. But yeah, it's an incredibly beautiful ride, but a heart-wrenching tough one, and I gotta warn you. Next up at our 14th spot, I'm going to put DIY, Do It Yuaserufu. This one's great. This one's really, really good. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's about a school's DIY club and them building things, them doing it themselves, them doing DIY projects and everything, and it's very, very fun. The art style is gorgeous. The art style is so impressive. It's really fun to look at. The characters are also like really, 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 really good. They have a lot of variety in their characters. There's this weird quirkiness to the series, but it just pays off. It's really good. Purin and Serufu, their relationship to me, again, if you watch my relationships video, it's ranked pretty highly. It's very, very good. I like Do It Yourself a lot. And yeah, I think that once again, they show us a good variety of different things, and they introduce the concept of a DIY club. That's basically cute girls doing cute things. We're doing a DIY club. and they nail the execution of that concept, which is good. It's always, again, good to see one of these anime actually really make use of their concept. In 13th place is both the top of A tier and our highest rated, or my highest rated at least, isekai of the year, and that is Tensei Shitara Kendeshita, or Reincarnated as a Sword. So we have the main character, who is reincarnated as a sword. He is found and wielded by a slave girl, I guess turned former slave girl, named Fran, who is from a race called the Black Cats, who are often, persecuted and sold into slavery and everything. And it's a really, really good story. Fran is an insanely good main character. And I love the way that rather than following the person who gets isekai'd, this guy's just a sword. I love that we have Shisho, which is the sword's name, or teacher. I love that we have him as this outsider perspective on this world and its characters as the person who was isekai'd. But the person who's actually interacting with all the characters, the person who's actually going on the journeys, doing the things, is Fran. I love Fran as a main character. I think that she is so well done, and so is Shisho. I think both of them are incredibly well done as individual characters. Their development, everything they do, is great as a pairing and also individually. The series just does such a good job with its story and characters. I think it was really, really, really well done. And also, in addition to that, the visuals were good. I think the fights in this are underrated. The fights in this are actually really solid. So yeah, again, best isekai of the year. And now that we're done with that, we're starting to dip our toes into the S tier with Akibi-chan no Sailor Fuku, or Akibi-chan Sailor Uniform. And this one, I talked about some of the others being style over substance, and this is that in a way. It is light on its characters. I guess I should, before getting into any of that, I should give you the main premise. It is about a girl who enrolls in an all-girls school so that she can wear a sailor uniform. They don't wear sailor uniforms there anymore, but they allow her to still do it, and so she gets to wear her sailor uniform, and it is just her everyday life at an all-girls school. That's it. But it's a little light on its story. It's a little light on its characters. But the story and characters were still good enough that the last couple episodes, I was getting teary-eyed. I was getting emotional. And while it's light on its characters and story, you know what it's heavy on? It's heavy on its art. It is gorgeous. This might be the most gorgeous anime of the year. It is beautiful. They have some kind of weird anime design faces going on, but it looks incredible. It looks beautiful. I cannot, there's no way that I can overhype how insane the visuals look to me for this. And it is basically just that. It is just a slice of life. It is just her living her everyday life in school and around her family, but with nutty, insane visuals. And that's just it. That's the anime. The story, again, is good enough to have gotten me all up in my emotions, but what you're watching it for is the visual quality. And I will say that something about it that I think the story and characters, even though it's very simple, even though it is just living their daily lives, I think to me, what about that hit me so hard is that even though I've obviously never been a girl out in a rural area going to an all-girls school, it still manages to give you that feeling of familiarity. Again, even though I'm not even in Japan and the Japanese school system's probably totally different, it just gives you that feeling of being like a middle schooler or early high schooler, whatever they are. It gives you that feeling of nostalgia, that feeling of reliving your childhood in a way. It just feels so familiar. It feels so... man, there's another word I could probably use here, but you get my point. It just feels so nostalgic. It feels so familiar, and it's really easy to just get into, to just soak in this anime. It's one of those where you can just watch it while eating something, or just watch it in general and just soak in the life, the everyday life of these characters. In 11th place, just shy of the top 10, still in S tier though, is Arknight's Reime Zenso, or Prelude to Dawn. And I have not played Arknights, so with my with my little, synopsis here and with my review, I don't know if fans of the actual game will take any issue with it, but yeah, it's basically about a post-apocalyptic sort of world where this disease, this erypathy, I believe it was called, is kind of ravaging the place, and it follows a group of people who are trying to help find a cure for the disease and help people who have it in a world where, big places are trying to sort of mistreat people who have the disease, but also there is a group of people who have the disease who have banded together to rebel against things and are kind of just anarchically destroying things. And it's really, really good. I think the story and characters here were really nice. They were really good. I love the vibes. They're immaculate. I love post-apocalyptic kind of stuff. And this is kind of like, not necessarily as post-apocalyptic as it is just apocalyptic, I suppose, would be a more accurate statement. But the visuals in this is another one that with both this and Akibi-chan no Seirefuku, I think that both of these have substance, but they have so much style that the style is part of the substance. This is gorgeous. They went all out. They killed the animation and the direction for this. Oh, the direction is beautiful. So yeah, getting into this, you're going to have fun action. You're going to have a neat world with good characters and stories told in it. But again, the biggest, most notable part of this is going to be the direction and the visuals, just like the one that I talked about before this. And now we get into our top 10. These are still S tier, but like I said before, I'm going to be doing kind of the countdown method like I've been doing for the other Anime Awards videos. We're going to start off our top 10 with Shingeki no Kyojin, or Attack on Titan, the final season, part 2. This one is one that I'm not exactly going to be able to recap without being spoilery, given that it is the second core of a 4th season. But I will say that I do think it was really great stuff. Obviously, if it's in the top 10. I think that this served as payoff for a lot of the characters that have been in the story for a while. There are so many episodes that were very, very good. The action, especially like the maybe second to last episode before that, the action is some of the most incredible stuff in anime, I think. The one episode where they're all in the forest, I think is a really, really good one. Some of the character choices are very, very cool. I will say the only kind of complaint I have is that as good as the finale was, the finale to, not the overall finale, but the finale to Final Season Part 2 was a little bit weaker than the episode or two before it. The episode or two before it were incredible character work and visual and action episodes, and the finale was just kind of, it was okay. It was solid. I get why it was important. I get why it was necessary, but it wasn't the best thing they've done. And I think that I am going to count, whenever I do 2023, I've already watched the finale, of course, and I read the manga beforehand. But I think I'll count the finale, like the 2 specials, I think I'll count that as one thing in the 2023 video. But if anybody wants my thoughts on it, again, everybody has probably heard a million people's thoughts on the finale to Attack on Titan. I thought it was solid. I get and don't get all the hate. To me, the finale matches the series as a whole. The story that the series told and the finale that we got were congruent with one another. The ending matches the story, and I also think that my opinion on the story as a whole and my opinion on the finale are the same, in that the story as a whole, I think, is very, very good. Again, I'm putting it here in S tier. But a lot of people say that it's the best anime of all time. And to me, if you're telling me to list the best anime of all time, I do not know if Attack on Titan is the first. I don't think it's in the first 10 anime that I'm listing off. It's maybe not in the top 20, possibly not even in the first 30 anime that I would list off as best anime of all time. Again, if anybody wants that kind of video, just let me know. And I think the same about the ending. I think the ending is solid, but it's certainly not the best I've ever seen. And I do think, if I had one complaint, the author tries to show us a lot of the world, but not a lot of the characters. And I would have liked for the characters to have gotten more time in the epilogue. I would like to have seen how things ended up for these individual characters rather than just showing us the idea as a whole. But yeah, I guess that's about it. Also, I would say for the finale, some of the visuals are really great, don't get me wrong, but I also feel like it's Mappa doing this, and a lot of the shots, a lot of the direction was kind of stiff, kind of stale, and a lot of the visuals weren't really all that impressive, and I'm just like, this is the finale for one of the best, or like, one of the most popular anime of all time. One of the, most highly regarded anime of all time. And I just feel like I've seen better visuals and much better direction in just random seasonal anime. So that to me was a little bit, I feel like the production quality of the finale was a little bit kind of at times. But yeah, that is kind of a sidebar, but I thought that, top 10 final season part 2. And the 9th best anime of 2022, at least for me, is Jashin-chan Dropkick X, or Dropkick on My Devil X, the 3rd season of Jashin-chan Dropkick. This is the first of 2 choices that I think may be a bit unique for some people, but I think it absolutely deserves it. The main premise is that it's about a demon or evil god that's been summoned to the real world by a human and has to kill the human in order to go back to hell, but she just can't seem to do it, and it's just a comedy. It is a straight up comedy with an incredible cast of characters. The cast of characters is so good, the comedy is so funny, and it's one of those things where when you get into Jashin-chan Dropkick, it feels like you are part of a wider community. It feels like you are part of a wider, fan sphere, like you're really part of something. And a part of that is because the first season was what it was, but everything since then, I think, has been fan funded. It's been crowdfunded. And even, local governments will throw in money to the crowdfunding and say, hey, do an episode where they visit our local city or whatever. And so a lot of the episodes are like that. I think I would have liked season 3 even more if less of the episodes were going and visiting places and more of them were just like sort of the traditional stuff. But this has one of the funniest scenes that I still laugh at to this day in anime, in like the 3rd or 4th episode. It's just very, very, very fun. It has such an iconic OST to me. The OST is so good, from the dun, 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 in the background, or like the leitmotif that they use from the first season's opening and everything, the da 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 da, like they use that so often in all of the OST tracks, and it's so good. I love this series so much. It's one of those things where at first I watched like the first episode of the first season, maybe first 2 episodes. I was like, I didn't really like it that much. But then once I really got into it, once I really watched all of the seasons, it's just so easy to fall in love with it. The visuals aren't the best you're going to see, but it has this feeling to it. It has just this, like, again, homegrown, it has heart, it has spirit, and it's so good. It's so good. Again, I would recommend anybody to at least maybe give it a try. And as funny as Jashin-chan Dropkick is, I'm actually giving 8th place to Yonnin wa Sorezore Uso o Tsuku, or The Little Lies We All Tell, because I think that this is the funniest comedy of the year. It is so fun. It's so funny. The visuals, again, are always solid. They're not great, but they're solid. But this is a comedy. So the basic premise is that this follows an alien who crashed down to Earth and is trapped on Earth and has to pretend that she's just a normal human girl, a telepath who can read people's minds who escaped from like this facility where telepaths are kept or whatever, and has to pretend she's a normal girl, a girl who is a ninja from a secret clan of ninjas who ran away from being a ninja so that she can experience life as a normal girl and has to hide that, and then a guy whose sister was like, bro, I want to go to an all-guy school so that I can hang out around hot guys. So you're switching places with me. And so the brother has to go. The brother is one of the main characters who has to go to the all-girl school. And he's like, well, this kind of sucks, but at least I get to be around cute girls all day. It actually might not be so bad. So he infiltrates the all-girl school and realizes that because it's like a middle school or whatever, he's like, wow, they're all terrible. And he gets to see into their lives and is like, wow, this isn't what I expected it to be, and has to, of course, hide that he is a guy. So again, we have 4 characters who are each hiding something. Like, that's the most tame one of the 4. That is the most normal of the 4, and I actually find that hilarious. I find it so hilarious that he is such a good character. Tsubasa's such a good character, where he's hiding he's a guy, but he's also just the most normal character. And so all of these things that he's seeing these girls do, and he's like, I guess this might be a girl thing. It's because they're literally a ninja, an alien, and a telepath. And it's so weird. It's so funny. The comedy's incredible. But on top of the comedy being incredible, they actually do manage to make it, like, they managed to make the story and the characters really good. Especially, I love the finale. The story and characters are actually so fun. So yeah, I would really recommend this one. In my opinion, definitely the funnest comedy of the year. And then in 7th place, we have another comedy. We got Bocchi the Rock. And this one is one that, again, is very, very popular. It's about a girl who is kind of, she's Hitori Bocchi, all alone. And she joins a band and they get into just normal band stuff from there. It's very much the 2020s K-On! In a way. It is K-On! For the 2020s. It's a comedy. It's got good music. I do think it's very, very funny. I just think, Uso Otsuku. I think that one, Yoni, and that one's funnier. This one is also incredibly funny, and again, much like that one, this one also tells a very good story with very good characters. But man, the visuals and the direction in this are incredible. There is so much love and so much heart put into this anime that really sets it apart. That's what you're going to see with some of my highest rated ones. They're ones that I feel like a lot of heart was put into. The creators really, really cared about these anime. And yeah, it was very, very funny. I think it has some of the year's absolute best direction. Some of the episodes actually are really, really incredible. Like, I think it was, again, maybe episode 8. I mentioned episode 8 when it came to Bisque Doll, but maybe episode 8 again is what I'm thinking of, where it was just a really good individual episode. And in addition to that, I mentioned it before when I was talking about Paripikome, where that was a music anime where there wasn't much music and the music wasn't that great. But though, again, I'm currently watching D4DJ, and that is kind of like almost a peak music anime to me. That's really, really good. But that aside, Bocchi the Rock's up there. There's a lot of music here, and the music is really solid. So yeah, Bocchi the Rock, very, very good. 6th place, just missing the top 5, is Osama Ranking, or Ranking of Kings. And this one was an early favorite of me. I mentioned in the opening ranking that this show kind of set me on to doing this project. Now, it did start in 2021, but for things that start in one year and have, 2 cores back to back and end in the other year, I'm counting what year the second core's in, what year it ends in. So that's why Osama Ranking is counting for 2022. It is about without getting spoilery, all I'll say is that it is about a young prince who is deaf and weak of body, and how he sort of lives with and overcomes that, makes friends, makes allies, connects with people, and tries to become a better prince, to become a king himself. And it's very, very, very sweet. It's very heartfelt. It's very good. You know what I can say about Ranking of Kings? They do not waste characters. If you see a character and you're like, oh, they're just going to be a background whoever. Nope, they're going to use them. They're going to use every character for all they've got in Ranking of Kings. And it's really, really, really good because they tell some good stories in here. But even aside from how good the story is and how good the characters are, it has beautiful visuals and this really awesome style that's very unique. It feels very old school, yet it's so fluid and so new looking that it kind of sets itself apart as its own thing. It's, again, another very incredible anime that, it's rough just missing out on the top 5. Starting out our top 5 is Shadow's House second season. And because it is a second season, I can't say too much without getting spoilery, but basic premise for the series is that this girl is a living doll. She, wakes up as a living doll, and she's working in this manor to serve the Shadows family. And the Shadows family are these shadow people. And this mystery starts sort of unraveling from there of who or what are the living dolls? Who or what are the Shadows? The Shadows family is powerful, connected, they run this entire manor, and how does this all work out? It's a supernatural mystery, its setting is awesome, I love the shadow designs, they're so good, I love the style of the architecture of the buildings and the clothing that the characters wear, all of that is just right up my alley, just the whole supernatural fantasy stuff is right up my alley. This is an incredibly underrated series, and personally, I'm like, I need more anime like this. This is just the type of thing that I love. This kind of psychological type stuff is so good to me, and I think that season 1 was very good. If you watch season 1 on its own and just think that's it for the series, it's incredibly good. Season 2 does a great job of continuing on from there. I think that compared to season 1, if you take it as a whole, it's not as complete a thing as season 1 was, but it piggybacks off of season 1 to give us some really good mysteries and some incredible character work. 4th place is actually our top of S tier, and it maybe should even be S+. It's Akiba Maid Senso, or Akiba Maid War, and this anime might be the anime that I have thought the most about. Like, there are a lot that I watched, and then I just kind of left it there. I just kind of went on with my life. But this one is one that's stuck with me, that's hit me in a lot of ways, that I still ponder upon to this day. It is about this girl who goes to Akiba. This is set in the 90s. She goes to Akiba to become a maid working at a maid cafe there. But all the maid cafes are connected with like Yakuza ties, and there's a bunch of murder and crime and crazy stuff. And the best description I've seen for this was in a comment section of a YouTube video where they were like, Akiba Maid War is like if you took the side missions from the Yakuza game franchise, like a Dragon game franchise, if you took the side missions from that, but had them as serious as the main story. And that is, I think, maybe the best description. It's wild, it's crazy, it's out there. It is so funny. It's hilarious. The comedy is so good, but it manages to tell a story with all that comedy that is just so deep and intricate. And I think the biggest thing, but the visuals are also really good. Not the best of the year, but they're really good. And I think what really sets it apart is how incredibly detailed and how incredibly well the direction was done, with like the first episode and the last episode kind of being mirrors, with scenes of Ranko and Nagami being mirrored to each other. So much of it is so good and so well done from a direction standpoint that it's incredible. And I started off, for those of you that might watch season 1 and say, this isn't for me, this is kind of weird. So episode 1 I watched and I was like, this is just going to be one of those weird comedy anime. You get comedy anime that get off on being weird all the time. Like that's their thing. That's their jumping off point, is that they are just a weird comedy. So that's what I thought I was getting at first. And then as I watched, I was like, no, what we're actually getting here is a traditional like Yakuza movie or mob movie, like mafia movie. But instead of the mob members, they're maids. That's what we're getting. And then it went even further from there, where I was like, no, what we're getting is a psychological question, a moral quandary, a deconstruction of, if you are placed or born into a situation, if you are an animal in an environment, do you adapt to your environment, even if it's not morally that great, even if you have to compromise on your morals, on who you want to be, on who you think you are as a person? Do you adapt to the environment that you're in, or do you rebel against the environment that you're in? Do you stand up against your ecosystem? Do you change? Do you stick to your guns and be the person you want to be? Do the things you want to do, even if you're going to go through hell because of it, even if you're going to lose so much, suffer so much because of it? Do you stick to who you want to be in the face of the world around you being different? And it's like, it's just so incredibly well done. And again, like I said, for any anime that I watched in the entire year, out of all these 50, this one just still to this day makes me think so much. I believe I mentioned in the intro, but my top 3 are actually S plus tier. These 3 are just the standouts for the entire year. Not seasonal standouts, they are yearly standouts. They are, if everything else that I just talked about was S tier, just great anime. Like, you should really go watch them. These 3 are, if you watch anything from 2022, they are must watch. They are the 3, in my opinion. And third place of those is Licorice Recoil. It is, a lot of people have just said anime girl John Wick. Kind of. It is sort of a just action. It's got comedy, it's got really good character stuff, but it's an action, and it's such a good action. It is so good. It tells a very good story about, do you choose a lie? Like, both the characters, there are 2 big themes. Man, I'm getting kind of mixed up here. But there are 2 kind of big themes, I would say, that I take from this story. The first is the effect that people can have on other people's lives. We see so much, especially with Chisato and Takina, Chisato and basically everyone around her. We see how she changes the lives of people around her. It's the effect that a positive influence can have on another person's life. That's a big theme here. But another big theme with the world of Licorice Recoil, that also you can look at the world and put this theme on it, but you can also look at the characters, Chisato in particular, and put this theme on it, is, do you choose a lie that protects you, a lie that is comfortable, or do you face the truth, even if the truth is really, really hard to deal with? And that's another of the big themes of this story. The visuals are incredibly good. The music is very good. I absolutely adore the characters and the relationship. The writing is completely incredible. Again, it's a must watch in my opinion. And our runner up, the second best to me, is Summertime Render or Summertime Rendering. This one is, I'm not going to be able to explain anything about the premise without being spoilery, so all I'm going to say is that it's a supernatural mystery with action shonen elements, and I need more. Again, I mentioned it with Shadow's House. I need more supernatural mysteries. I love it. This does have some relation to, all I'll say is like time travel, time manipulation type stuff. And usually I don't like that in anime. Usually, or not even just anime, stories in general. Usually I hate involving the concept of time just not being a solid linear thing because it screws up so much logically. But this handles it very, very well. The characters are incredibly good. The story's incredibly good. The relationships are incredibly good. The visuals, I love. I love the style, the vibe. The setting is incredible. Yeah, I can't really actually, for this to be so highly rated, I don't think that I can talk too much about it without being spoilery, but just know that I think it is, again, out of all these 50, absolutely mind-blowingly good. And at first I watched it and I thought that it was mind-blowingly good, but I didn't like the ending that much. The ending was just okay. And then I watched a bunch of reaction series, so I experienced it again and again. And the more I experienced it, the more I was like, you know what? I disagree with my past self. It was incredibly good. And I also think the ending was really good. I really like the ending now too. So yeah, I just think it's overall very good. One of the 3, in my opinion, must-watches. And number 1, the best anime of 2022. What competition did it have? I mean, the other 2 were competition, but Chainsaw Man is incredible. So it's about, being spoiler-free as possible, a guy that can transform into Chainsaw Man fighting demons or devils. That is, succinct. That's all you need to know. It's incredible. And here's the thing with Chainsaw Man. I read the manga before watching, and I have a tendency to be a bit of a manga Andy. I'm a bit of a manga Matthew, if you will. If I if I read a manga first and then watch the anime, I am very often a bit more critical of it. I am more like, oh, this was better in the manga. Oh, this was so hype, and now it doesn't live up to that. But no, this is good. This is possibly the best adaptation I have seen in anime. They nailed this. Not only did they adapt a good story and still have it incredibly good, the visuals are some of the nuttiest stuff that I've seen in anime in general. The direction is some of the craziest stuff I've seen in anime in general. The music is some of the best stuff I've seen in anime in general. Not only is the actual OST, the episode-to-episode, scene-to-scene backing music so good and so perfect, and the sound design, the ambiance that they put in some of their scenes is brilliant, but they also just... the cavalcade of endings they have. Every episode's a different ending, and they're by some of the most popular artists in Japan. They're incredibly good songs. It is mind-blowing how much time and effort and care was put into this adaptation. I know there's a lot to be said about MAPPA's production practices, but even with that, you don't get a series with so much little detail like this. You don't get a series with so much effort put in, with so much care in what we got in the final product, without people that really cared about making it look and sound good. Like, that's something that I can say with a lot of these anime. Like I said, when you can tell that people put effort into it, even the lower budget ones, when you can tell that people put effort into it, you can tell the difference, to me, between when you're watching an anime and you're like, oh, the studio was just paid to make, like, the artists working on this scene were just like, hey, it's just a job. We were hired to adapt this manga or whatever, and we're just adapting it. And you can tell when the people were like, we're going to make this look good. We're going to make this sound good. You can tell when there was some care put in there. And Chainsaw Man is like one of the most, like, detailed, caringly crafted anime I think I've maybe ever seen. This was insane to me. So yeah, that's where we are. That's where we leave the list off. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you liked my reviews of all these 50. I hope you go at least check some of them out if you haven't already. If you've already seen all 50 somehow, I'd love to know what you thought of my thoughts on them. So either way, I guess I'll go through my usual like, comment, subscribe stuff. So like if you did like the video, comment down there to tell me what you thought of all 50 of these anime, whatever you've watched, whatever you've decided to check out because of this. What you think of my thoughts on them. Let me know what you think of all of this stuff. Subscribe for more anime, much more on the channel. There is a ton on my channel, so please sub for more if you want to. If you want to talk on Twitter, we can. If you want to talk on Discord, we can. The server's free and open for anyone. All you gotta do is ask and you will be given a link. And if you would like to help support the channel, help me to continue to make videos, then you could hit join. Well, you could drop a super thanks if you want to, but if you want to get One Piece videos early, if you want to get a shout out at the end of every video, then hit join down below to become a member. Go to patreon.com/Haku of the tubes. Their link will be in the description to become a patron. Either way, that is a way to get shout outs in One Piece early, as well as knowing you're helping me to continue to make videos. I will do a video soon where I'll talk about 2023 and 2024, so keep an eye out for that. Yeah, pretty soon I'll do a video kind of talking about some of the stuff I'm thinking of watching for 2023 and 2024. Maybe get some of your input, things that you are like give you an opportunity to say you need to watch this or don't bother with that. I'll be doing that soon. But either way, before I end, I do want to thank patrons and members. Thank you so much to Chosen Regular Evan Holly, to Magical Girls, Evernono and Abyss Knight, to Cheriton students, David Langstaff and Folded Ghoul, to Slayer candidates, SG and Stan Cedar, and to Pure Element Pate Ardeal, and to anyone who's already been a patron or member. To anybody watching, thank you for helping support the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.